Today we're learning Peirush Halacha Yud Aleph. Starts off Shnei Tziburim. Echad Shel Chametz ve'Echad Shel Matzah u'Shnei Batim. Echad Bodek ve'Echad She'eino Bodek. Now, in this halacha, we're going to discuss what happens when one piece separates itself from the others. Peirush Chulun and Truma that got mixed up with other Peirush. What happens if you have two shvilin and one person was one shvil was tamei and one was toher, and two people went each one on a different shvil? The difference between if they ask at the same time, these two people, whether they're Torah or not, or if they ask one after the other, not at the same time, or one asks about both of them, and also if the shiur of b'digas chametz, a sofik, is considered a sofik tumah b'shus hayochid, because there's a klal that sofik tumah b'shus hayochid is tomein, sofik tumah b'shus harabim is toher. The Rambam begins. Shnei Tziburim. Echad, one is made of Shel Chametz, ve'Echad Shel Matzah. Two piles. U'Shnei Batim. One is Bodek and one isn't Bodek. U'bo Shnei Achborim. And you have two rodents come now. They're not Chametz. This one took Chametz, this is not Matzah. Each one took a different thing. Because we know for sure that one took from one pile, one took from the other. They don't know which house the one that took chametz went into. They don't know which one the one that took chametz went into and the one that took matzah went into. And if it went into a house that's not boduk, you have to check it. And not the house that's checked, but if it went into the house that's checked, you have to check it again. And also two batim bedukim, two houses that were checked. There's only one pile of chametz. Ubo achbar, and a rodent came v'notal, and he took, for sure he took chametz this time. We don't know which house he went into. Or we know and we know he went into one of them. And he went to check afterwards. And he didn't find anything. Or he did find a kikor, and the Hagos Maimon says, therefore we should conclude that this is what went in. Or another instance, there were Tisha Tzibur and Shel Matzah, 9 vials of matzah, ve'echad shel chometz, and one of chometz, and it's not talking with an achbor, upirish kikor man, and one of them is missing. We don't know what's missing, the chometz of the matzah. It fell down. We don't know from which pile it fell down. And now an achbor comes and takes that piece that fell down from the pile, that piece which separated itself, and he went to a house that was checked. In either any of these situations, you don't have to check a second time, because it did not separate from something that's kavua. Because we learned in Halacha Yud that you have to check again is only when it was taken from a place where for sure there was chametz. But when it's taken from some place where there was a doubt whether there was chametz or not, so we're saying, called the Peirush Meruba Peirush. Whatever separates comes from the majority. And we assume that the majority is matzah, just like in a city where there's 9 stores, and they sell Bostoner kosher, and one says it's nevela, and somebody went into a store and bought. The din is that you say that if he went into the store, it's a sofik and he can't eat it. However, if he finds a piece of meat out in the street, everything that separates we assume is from the majority. The majority, 9 out of the 10 stores sell Bostoner kosher. Therefore, we say that here too, where it's 9 out of 10 piles of matzah, that it went from the majority, and they're matzah, and therefore he doesn't have to check again. It would seem that in all these cases, you don't have to check again, because there is no situation where you have a definitive place of chometz or matzah. Now, Peirush Chulun. If you have Peirush Chulun, meaning that they took truma from, you took off the truma from it, and you can eat it with truma. And you have truma. Now this, they got mixed into other fruits. Again, so the Rambam says, Shnei Tziburim. If you have two piles, Echad Shel Chometz, Echad Shel Matzah, one of Chometz and one of Matzah. The Magid Mishnah cites Psochim. Two Tziburim, Echad Shel Matzah, Echad Shel Chometz. And in front of them are two houses. One is Boduk, one is not Boduk. And two rodents came, two mice came. One took Matzah, one took Chometz. We don't know which one went to which house and which one went to the other house. This is the situation of two boxes. Boxes, the Gemara says in the Tosefta in Truma, when you have in front of you two baskets or boxes, one of them is fruit of chulin, and the sheni, in the other one, you have fruit of truma. And in front of them, there's another two boxes, one of chulin and one of truma. And one box, the two boxes of chulin, we go to the next page, fell into that of truma. And they got mixed into both boxes. So the one of chulin remains chulin. What we know was chulin before it's chulin, and it remains mutter. Because we say that the chulin fell into the chulin, and the truma fell into the truma. So the Gemara has a question, only by truma maybe we're mekel, because today, when we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, and Klal Yisrael, the majority of Klal Yisrael is not Net Yisrael, so truma is drabonon. But how do you know that you're mekel by chometz, which is an issa d'oraisa? To say that the chometz fell into the chometz and the matzah fell into the matzah. The Gemara answers, because chometz is only drabonon. Midoraisa, as we learned, you can just nullify. And there, our sugya is talking about whether you have to check again, because he nullified, and that's only the Rabbanon, because the Torah nullification is enough. And this is the source to be mekel and say that the rodent that took the matzah went into the house that was boduk, and therefore you don't have to check it, because the matzah doesn't spoil the category of the house. And the achbor who took the chometz went into the house had to be checked anyway. The Magid Mishnah wants to prove from the Rambam that every place that was mentioned in that sugya of items regarding a chiyuv b'dika, that's the law, that's the case. And not like the Ravid, as we'll see, that it's talking whether he has to be mevatel, but the chiyuv is rather whether he has to check the house. That's what the Magid Mishnah wants to prove. Now, there's a din of shnei shvilin, and whether the people who went on them, where you have two pathways, one has a grave in it, and anybody who passes that pathway becomes tomei, and one doesn't, and you store. And two people went, one on path A, and one went on path B, but they don't know who went on which, and they asked either together, or they asked one after the other, or they asked on both instances. And also, two houses, the Rambam says, that are checked, and there's one pile of chometz, and an achbar came and took it. Only one pile of chometz, so it's definitely chometz. We don't know to which house he went into. So here, the Mekor is in Psochim 10a, and we learn from our Mishnah in Taharis, when we have these two pathways, then if a person went on one, but he doesn't know which one he went onto, and then he was oisik b'taharetz, and his friend went on a different way, and he was also oisik b'taharetz, meaning he touched things that are torah, and if he's tomei, he made them tomei, and one of them certainly became tomei, or that Reuben and Shimon went at the same time, and one took one path, and the other one took the higher road, and the other one took the lower road, and Rabbi Yehuda says, if they come to ask independently in Bezdin, then we say it's Torah, and whatever they did, they are Torah, and whatever they did is Torah. Why? Because there's a klal. Sovik Tumah, Rishus HaRabim is Torah. Sovik Tumah, Rishus HaRabim is Torah, and the Shvil is in Rishus HaRabim. However, if they come to ask at one time, I go to the next page, they are Tomei, because you can't say that they're both Torah. one of them certainly became Tomei. Rabbi Yossi disagrees, and then it doesn't matter if they ask by themselves or they ask one after the other. They're both Tomei because somebody has to be Tomei. That's the way Rashi learns Rabbi Yossi. And the Rambam learns the same way. He passing like Rabbi Yossi in Hilchos Chametz that both are Tomei. So the Magen Mishnah cites that Rava explains if they came to ask at one time, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, they're Tomei. If they come to ask one after the other, even Rabbi Yossi is moida that they're Torah. They're only disagreeing where one came to ask about himself and about his friend. Rabbi Yossi says that's like coming together, and therefore they're both Tomei, because he's asking about both of them. It can't be that they're both Torah if he's asking at the same time. However, Rabbi Yehuda says when one asks about his friend, it's more like one asking one after the other, that you pass him for each one, your Torah, because it's a suffix. The suffix to ambitious Rambam is Torah. And you are the second one, now you're asking about him, it's suffix to ambitious Rambam is Torah for him as well. Now in Hilchos Chametz, the Rambam paskins by the two roads, which one is Torah and one is Tomei, and he went to one of them, and he did, afterwards he touched Taras. Again, what we mentioned before, if they come and ask one after the other, we tell each one your Torah. If they come together, we say that they're Tomei, and we be passing the Rabbi Yossi because of what Rava says. So Rashi explains that the Gemara wants to say that two batim, a bedukim, are very similar, and one pile of chametz is similar to this case of the two pathways, and we don't know which way the achbar went into, and therefore, if the two owners of the house come to ask the question by themselves, we tell each one of them, you're not obligated to check again, because B'dikas Chametz is Drabon, and you say Lekula. But if they came to ask together, or according to Rabbi Yossi, the Halacha is like him, if one came to ask about both of them, then they would both have to check their homes. So the Magen Mishnah asks a question: why doesn't the Rambam state that it depends if each house is checked and the owners came by themselves, that he doesn't have to go and repeat the bedika, because Savak bedika is Chametz D'Rabbanan, and you say Lekula. And if they both came, he should say that they are Tomei, just like we say by the two Shvilim. So the Magen Mishnah explains that many Meforshim say the din of Chametz is similar to the din of Tumah, Rabbi Yossi. But they explain, now we'll go to the next page, that the Loshen HaGemorah, that this is like two pathways, is only that we say by each one Lekula, and not if they came to ask with regard to together or separately, or one asked on the other. Because Chometz is not exactly like Shvilin. Because by Shvilin, if they come together, for sure, we can't say they're both Torah, and therefore they're both Tomei. However, b'chometz, min haraisa bittul is enough. So here we can rely always and tell him, okay, b'mavatel, and therefore there's no obligation. The Chachamim in the situation of Suffolk did not require bedika. The Magen Mishnah finishes, and we have to really look into this. What does this mean? Because seemingly the Gemara doesn't make any differentiation because of bittul or whether not bittul, whether they make it equivalent to that situation, and maybe he's referring to in Halacha Yud, where he says that midaraisa bittul sagi, the Rambam holds that Achon were machmir gam besofik. And then he asks, if that's the case, why didn't the Rambam explain the differentiations as to whether they came together, they came independently, or they came one after the other? Therefore, the Kesef Mishnah explains that the Rambam is of the opinion that even on two pathways, if they came to ask at one time, the Tomei Midrabbanan, even though we said they're Torah, they're Tomei. It's only Midrabanan. Midraisa, the Torah, because each one individually is Safek Tumah B'Shus Harabim in the Torah. And therefore, Hilchos Chametz, that's only the Rabbanon, they said, we rely on the Din Torah, that the Torah. When it says they're Tomei, when they ask together, it's only because the Achomer Machmer over there, because people won't understand it. But when the Torah is Exeres HaKosuv, that they're both Torah. And therefore, by Chametz, even if they came together, they do not have to check. It has nothing to do with whether they were nullified or not. So the Kesef Mishnah asks a question. The Sofik of Medika, when did it happen? It was just Ayochid. Because we're talking about a private house. And the Klal is Sofik Tumah B'Shus Ayochid is Tomei. Even in Torah, Sofik Tumah we learn from Saitis, Tomei B'Shus Ayochid. And how does he say in Torah you don't need to check again? And he explains that since B'digas Chametz is the Rabbanon, they didn't make a differentiation between Rishus HaYochid and Rishus HaRabim. And any doubt, when we're in doubt, you don't have to check again. And since Midaraisa, even if they came to ask together by a situation where it would be Torah, here too, like Rabbanon, we are Mekel, we say they would be Torah if they asked, because the Rachamim, Savik Rabbanon is the Kula. And on this, the Mishnah Melech says in the middle of Halacha Yud Aleph that after he brings the Divrei Magid and Mishnah, after he brings the words of the Magid Mishnah and the Kesef Mishnah, he states, I believe that that's what the Magid means, and I can't understand any other explanation except for this. So the Mishnah Melech continues. From the Kesef Mishnah, it would seem that he understood, in the words of the Magid Mishnah, a different differentiation. And I don't know what it is. And he asks, from the Kesef Mishnah, it would seem that Tumas Rabbanon, even if they came to ask together, they're both Torah. Because that's if we're saying anything that's Rabbanon, we go to Kula, it would be Torah. Now we go to the next page. And from the Mishnah in Taurus, by Shneki Korim, in Perek Hey Mishnah Vov, it says 2 breads, 1 Tomei, 1 Torah, and he ate one of them and he did Taurus. And if you eat something that's Tomei of Kochim, you become Tomei. And his Chaver came and he ate the other one and he also did Taurus. Rabbi Yosi says whether they asked together or whether they asked independently, they're Tomei. So we see, and this is only a Tumah D'Rabbanan, because if you eat the kiko, you become Tomei, it's only D'Rabbanan. And if they come to ask, we go L'chumra. And if we have the Rabbanic situation, why do we go L'chumra? And the Rambam says so specifically in Ovis HaTumah. So the Mishnah Melech says, this is a very strong question and needs great depth. So the Mishnah Melech goes further on the question of the Magid Mishnah, the Kesef Mishnah. He says, I do not know why were they were afraid. In other words, why were they so upset with this question? Because the din of the Rambam is found in Ksubis, where in Chav Zayin A, 27a, a city that was captured by enemies, and there were women who were married, and there's a chash, maybe they were raped, and they're posel l'kuna, even if they weren't married, they're also posel l'kuna. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, if there's a place where they could hide, even just one woman, then the whole city is saved, because we say this is the woman who hid there. And even as we said, even if it can hold one woman, the Gemara attempts to make it similar to 2 roads. That if 2 women went, if they'll ask a question at the same time, we have to say one of them is Tomei, because 2 people can't hide in that place in the city. And the Gemara says it's not similar. Why? Because by roads, there's certainly a tumah. However, here it's only a suffix and they're tomei. So the Mishnah Lamelch learns that even if they come to ask at the same time, everything that's only awesome because of a suffix, even if it's suffix deraisa, we always go lehokel. And therefore, by b'dikas chomen shu suffix toil lehokel. Even if we see that the achma went to a house It's not considered vadai that he brought the chametz into the house, because maybe he ate it before he went in, and therefore the houses remain in the chazkes boduk, and we go to mekel, just like any sitting that was captured by enemies, that we always go to kula, even when the hiding place can only hold one woman. We say all the women atar. Before we continue, we're going to stop here. In the next shiur, we'll continue with section B.